Giovanni, talk to me about what is new in this world, the audio search spectrum.
Well, howdy. Good morning. Good afternoon. It's funny because right before we came on the air, Ed kind of brought up a blast from my past, Dragon Search. And back in a previous life when I was a full-time developer, I used to do a lot of work with, at that point in time, they were search of speech APIs, what we call them, application programming interfaces. So we spent a lot of very kind of frustrating hours trying to figure out a way to get computers to actually, in those days, it was primarily dictation. And so we spent a lot of time trying to develop applications that actually made that stuff work. And one thing that I mentioned to Ed was that, and we're talking late 90s-ish, we had applications that would run and have a 90% success rate, and we thought that was amazing and fantastic and wonderful. The issue, though, is that 10% is a huge chunk of misses that frustrate the user. And at that point in time, it frustrated the user so much that people just didn't use the products. And Dragon, I'm pretty sure that Dragon and Natural Speaking are still out there on the market to sell. A lot of that functionality has been built in. I use a Mac. A lot of that's been built into the Mac automatically now, and I would assume on the Windows side. But primarily, what I want to talk about today in the new area of kind of speech, and this is the kind of great grandchild of what we were doing back in the 1990s, is the artificial intelligence and the search capabilities on not only on products like the Amazon Alexa, like the HomePod, and I'm going to be very careful, and I apologize ahead of time if I use any trigger words for any of these devices. That drives me out of my mind when podcasters do that because everything in my house lights up, So I will tell you ahead of time, I'm trying not to use those trigger words, but if I do, I apologize now. We're talking about the Google Home device. We're also talking about Cortana now. So Cortana from Microsoft is an interesting animal because Harman Kardon has got a smart speaker that they've got Cortana built into, and it's a beautiful kind of a high-end-ish audio speaker, kind of competing with Apple's HomePod. But one thing a lot of folks don't know is that 25% of searches that happen on Windows desktop today are done through speech. And that, to me, when I found out that number a few months ago, I was flabbergasted that you've got 25% of the time somebody is searching for something and because what happens is on the Windows desktop, you can search anywhere on the desktop, and it searches the operating system and the web and your email and everything for you at the same time. So people are just talking to their computers, and it's getting the answers back, right? So not only do we have those products out there that have all this audio speech kind of functionality built into it, you also have to consider that 60% of all searches for businesses and for services happen on mobile devices today. On top of that, some other interesting numbers. Siri is currently handling well over 1 billion searches per week worldwide. And now we know that 20%, and in fact, this was back in May of 2017, which is almost a year ago, 20% of searches a year ago on mobile devices were done through voice activation and through assistants and things like that. So what does this mean for us? I mean, in very real terms, if you've got a business that is going to be hyper-local, kind of a localized business providing services and things like that, or if you're selling products that are going to come out of a business like that, it's pretty important to you. 82% of folks that do searches now are searching on mobile devices. Half of those people, this is an insane number, half of the people that do a search on a mobile device visit a brick-and-mortar store within 24 hours. And of those people that visit, 18% purchase something. Now, before this happened, email marketing was still the absolute king in online marketing, pound for pound. And in email marketing, we are hanging the moon if we think we're getting 12% open rate. Forget about conversion. If you can get 12% open rate, you think that your what doesn't stink. And if you can get a 2% conversion rate, you think you're a rock star. We're talking about a platform now that has got an 18% conversion rate that is outrageous. And nobody in marketing, from a standpoint of how do I technically attack this and position myself so I can take advantage of that, hardly anybody's doing it. Why? because as marketers, we're wired to think about creative and pictures and verbiage and words and that calls to action. We do not want to mess with coding, and this requires coding. If
Giovanni,
you're going to own this,
I know that usually
I've got Ed all excited on the other
you
side of
can
the
tell.
table.
Well, you triggered me. I'm like the machine myself. But the question I think that comes up here is that based on what you just said, how important is it to optimize your website for vocal search at the local level?
Yeah. At the local level is the absolute key, because there are plenty of folks that this just doesn't matter for, right? And so at the local level is probably the most important element in this. So if you're a CEO of a company and you've got 25 dry cleaners throughout a metropolitan area, if you own restaurants, if you own any kind of a brick and mortar store and your business is focused on, and this is the primary audience, if you have any kind of a business that requires somebody to search for you and they want you now, and they have to drive to find you, this is where the money's at. So there's 4 kind of primary searches people do on audible searches. Number 1 is a who and what. Who is Steve Jobs? You know, who was the last winner of the World Series? Who hit the most home runs in a World Series either, right? Those are worth $0 for us, okay? Right. We don't care. That's informational. Right. The number 1 is a how. How do I build a table? How do I make enchiladas? Again, not a whole lot of money in that unless you're a content provider and you have how-to videos. There's a brand that I worked with years and years ago called Howdini. They're one of the biggest how-to channels on YouTube still today. And they make all their money by driving traffic to their website to watch videos about how to put on fake eyelashes and how to change the oil in your car and stuff like that. Next level is when. When is the next showing of Star Wars The Last Jedi? Those kind of questions. That can start bringing cash into you. When is the next Texas Rangers baseball game? The big money is where. Anybody who's doing a search on anything that is close to what your brand does, looking for a where, those are the folks that are going to go and put money into your bank account. I have run so long already, we're going to have to finish up next week, but I'm going to give you a couple of tips. And I'm going to give you some stuff to do right now to start looking at. And then next week, we're going to get into more detail about how to actually implement some voice search. Number 1 is answering the right questions. What's old is new again. On your websites, we have gotten away from doing FAQs on your website. FAQs need to be put back on your website, and then the questions on the FAQ need to come directly from an idea if someone is on Preston Road here in Dallas and my restaurant is over on Hillcrest and I want to find the closest Tex-Mex restaurant, I want to find the closest insurance agency, you need to put the text on your page that says, where is the closest insurance agent to me? And then you need to answer it in a conversational tone. And so you would answer it in a way that says, the closest insurance agency to you is State Farm, agent name, over on Hillcrest Road. You can get there in X amount of time. That's the way you answer this stuff. And so you start testing yourself by purchasing one of these products. I mean, if you're a CEO, these things are $100. Go out and get one and start asking it questions related to your business. Find out where your competitors show up. I've got some amazing kind of screenshots I want to kind of bring into the website, and we'll talk about that later. But next week I want to get into some very fine technical implementations that I can share with folks. And I don't expect the CEOs to do this. I expect the nerds on their team to do it. But I can walk them through exactly what they need to do so that they can own this space, because none of their competitors are doing it.
Thank you, Giovanni. All right, Giovanni Gallucci. We're going to be right back on the other side of this break with Private Equity Moment, Ed Baxter, and Bison Creek Capital. All right, segment brought to you by thevitaminpatch.com. You've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Don't forget, podcasts and social media followings everywhere.